Classroom is here for you. It helps you in all you do. It helps you know you do. So tune in and now enjoy the fun. It's time for English, everyone. Studio Classroom is on the air. You can watch it everywhere. English is the way to go. So join us now, enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Studio Classroom, friends. My name is Anne-Marie.
And my name is Gabe. We're very happy that you are joining us for the second day of our lesson about liquid gold, that is groundwater. And of course, today is a great day to learn something new.
It certainly is. So let's do that together. Before we get into our lesson today, let's look at some of the things that we learned yesterday. We learned what groundwater is. It's water under the surface of the earth, and it collects when there is a lot of rainfall or snowfall, and it kind of sits under the surface of the earth.
And we learned about kind of an unfortunate fact. In 2021, Taiwan experienced its worst drought in 50 years. And actually, the problem hasn't been getting any better. And a lot of people think that this is due to climate change, which is driving typhoons away from the island.
That's right. And we do have a lot more to learn about groundwater, why not having enough groundwater is a problem, and what we can do about it today. So let's get into our first reading of the day.
Liquid gold. Taiwan's groundwater is mainly used for domestic, industrial, and agricultural purposes, but it hasn't always been used responsibly. In the past, groundwater was excessively pumped out of the ground. This resulted in ground subsidence. The land sank due to the sudden removal of so much water so quickly.
Hello everyone, welcome to Language Lab. I'm Jack. 我们先来看 agricultural 这个形容词，它的意思是农业的。譬如 This country's economy is largely dependent on its agricultural industry. 这个国家的经济大多依赖他们的农业。或者是 The farmers who have been using the new agricultural techniques introduced by the Farmers Association have increased their crop yields. 采用农会引进的新技术的农民，他们的作物产量增加了。再看一个例句。The government has begun a series of policies that are aimed at promoting sustainable agricultural practices. 政府开始一系列的政策，目的在提倡永续农法。
All right, thank you, Jack. Let's get into our lesson, friends. We read, Taiwan's groundwater is mainly used for domestic, industrial, and agricultural purposes, but it hasn't always been used responsibly. All right, so there are three main uses for this groundwater, and those are pretty important uses, right? It seems like a lot of people and a lot of industries depend on groundwater.
Yeah, for sure. Like when I think of domestic purposes, I think of people like you and me. We all need water to drink, right? And to, take showers with and to clean our dishes with and things like that. Industrial, that got me thinking, well, what kind of industries use water? A lot, of course, TSMC, or basically the semiconductor industry in general, they use a kind of water called ultra pure water, which is much cleaner than the water that we even drink.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But it says here in our article that this hasn't always been used responsibly. If something isn't used responsibly, it means that maybe there's a certain amount that should be used or shouldn't be used, but people aren't keeping track or making sure that it doesn't get overused.
Right. No matter what you're using or no matter what you're doing, you want to do that responsibly or use what you have responsibly. Don't waste it. Well, we read on here, in the past, groundwater was excessively pumped out of the ground. In the past, that's a way that you can refer to the past in general if you don't want to be specific about the time.
That's right. And we see the adverb excessively here. That's one of your word bank words this month. Now, excessively, of course, is an adverb, but the adjective form of this word is excessive. And I just want to point out that the noun form of this word is pronounced a little bit differently.
Hey, that's right. So you're talking about where the emphasis is on the noun form, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So that's excess. So for the other words, the adjective and the adverb, it's excessively, it's on the second syllable, but the emphasis for the noun is on the first syllable. You might have an excess of something, like groundwater.
That's right. Well, what happened was this resulted in ground subsidence. Now, subsidence is not a word that we usually see every day. Can you explain that for us, Gabe?
Yes, subsidence refers to the idea of something gradually sinking or caving in, especially when it comes to soil or something that has to do with the ground. And this leads to things like sinkholes. That word doesn't appear in your lesson, but this is what happens when there is a sinkhole. This could happen anywhere, right? If the ground below is not very firm or stable, then the surface will also cave in. I believe this happened earlier this year in Taipei near the Nanjing Donglu area. There was a sinkhole right in the middle of the city.
I remember that. That was really terrible. We read here the land sank due to the sudden removal of so much water so quickly. All right, so pumping groundwater excessively out of the ground is one way that groundwater has not been used responsibly. We're going to learn about another way it hasn't been used responsibly right after today's Info Cloud.
Hello friends, welcome to Info Cloud. Hey Rex, how are you feeling today?
Honestly, Campbell, everything is good. I'm feeling right as rain.
That's a great expression, Rex. Right as rain. Can you tell us what it means?
Right as rain means to be perfectly fine or in good health. It's often used to describe someone or something that is functioning well or going smoothly.
That's right. It's a common expression used to convey the idea of being in an ideal or optimal condition.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. Let's say you were feeling sick yesterday, but today you feel completely healthy. You could say, I'm feeling right as rain now.
So it's about being in a state of perfect well-being.
Exactly. It can also be used to describe something that is working perfectly. For instance, if a broken appliance suddenly starts functioning perfectly, you could say, the device is working right as rain.
That makes sense. But do you know where the phrase comes from?
The origin of the phrase is uncertain, but it is believed to have originated in England, where rain is often seen as a symbol of freshness and renewal.
西方人有一个很特别的用语，形容一样东西或是一个人状况相当良好，那就是 right as rain。字面上是跟下雨一样好，因为天降甘霖可以滋润大地，解决很多民生问题。因此 right as rain 就会用来形容状态非常好。My phone is working right as rain now that I got it fixed. 我把手机拿去修理之后，现在用起来都没什么问题了。Right as rain 也可以用来形容一个人非常健康。例如 I was sick last week, but now I'm right as rain. 上个礼拜我生病了，不过现在我已经完全康复了。这就是今天的 Info Cloud， 我们下次云端见。
Liquid gold. Groundwater has also been polluted. In a famous case, a factory in Taoyuan seriously polluted its groundwater. Since this was also the source of the employees' drinking water, many of them got cancer. Had the pollution been detected earlier, this suffering could have been prevented. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to detect polluted groundwater. Groundwater pollution can go undetected until someone feels ill or notices that their water is discolored.
好的，接着我们来看 groundwater 这个名词，它的意思是地下水。譬如 The well in the middle of town provides drinking water to the village by tapping into the groundwater supply. 镇中心的水井开发地下水，为村庄提供饮用水。或者是 The industrial pollution that was found in the groundwater has created a public health crisis. 在地下水中发现的工业污染已经造成了公共卫生的危机。再看一个例句 The agricultural industry relies heavily on groundwater to water the crops. 农业大量地依赖地下水来灌溉农作物。
Thank you, Jack. All right, it is time for us to talk about pollution, not a topic we like, right? Groundwater has also been polluted. In a famous case, a factory in Taoyuan seriously polluted its groundwater. Well, we see the word famous here, but I wonder if what our writer meant was infamous.
Yeah, that's a good point, because usually if it's something negative, if something or someone has become well-known or famous because of being very negative, then we would use the word infamous. It sounds like this is a very infamous case. But yeah, either way, a lot of people know about this case. Our lesson doesn't go into the details, but this had to do with the Radio Corps of America, which was stationed here, and it was between the years of 1970 and 1992. And in this case, a factory in Taoyuan seriously polluted its groundwater.
And that's what we are talking about here in this section. We read on, since this was also the source of the employees' drinking water, many of them got cancer. If something is the source for something, it means that that is where it comes from. That is the original place where the other thing came from.
Now, what about something that gives you cancer or that causes cancer? We have a word for that. That's a carcinogen. A lot of people believe that tobacco is a carcinogen. There are different things in life that are believed to either directly cause cancer or indirectly lead to cancer, right? And of course, this drinking water caused many of these people to get cancer.
It sure did. And we read here, had the pollution been detected earlier, this suffering could have been prevented. So this sounds like it was a real tragedy. We see that word detected there, and that has the idea that you're finding something, but maybe you're not necessarily looking for it. Or sometimes you are. Here's another way we could use this word. The police dog detected something in the traveler's suitcase. That means he found something. He knew that it was there.
That's right. Well, we read, had the pollution been detected earlier, and actually, I found out that this was detected in 1989. So, as I said before, this company was around since 1970. So almost 20 years later.
Wow.
People had to deal with this groundwater and with this stuff in their bodies, and they had no idea.
So they were drinking it for 20 years.
Basically, and that's why a lot of them got sick, a lot of them got cancer. In 2022, finally, workers won their case for this. It was a long, drawn-out case. But as we read in our lesson, it could have been prevented. The adjective there we could use is preventable. This was a preventable thing.
And we see the problem here. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to detect polluted groundwater. Groundwater pollution can go undetected until someone feels ill or notices that their water is discolored. That sounds pretty disgusting to me. All right, friends, well, we are going to finish out our article in just a minute, right after today's fun fact.
Fix the water in this house. Hello, fact friends. I am Detective Ernest Finder, and I have a very fun and interesting fact for you today. Did you know that Taiwan uses 27 different methods to purify water? It's true. They use a lot of different methods, and many of these methods use filters and special chemicals. But I was surprised to learn that none of the methods involve a gong fu. You would think someone would be able to do that, but I don't know. Anyway, that is today's fun fact. 27 different methods. Got to fix my water pipes now.
Liquid gold. Taiwan's government has invested significant amounts of time and money in cleaning up groundwater. But it's not an easy fight. In this threefold crisis of scarcity, overuse, and pollution, the government must simultaneously address both the quantity and quality of available groundwater. Part of their strategy is to build more monitoring wells, which help keep tabs on the health of groundwater. Hopefully, the government's efforts will bring Taiwan's groundwater woes to a close and help the island manage this resource.
接下来看 simultaneously 这个副词，它的意思是同时发生的。譬如 When I walked into her office, Bernice was talking on the phone and typing simultaneously. 我走进 Bernice 的办公室时，她正在一边讲电话一边打字。或者是 The twins often spoke at the same time, simultaneously finishing each other's sentences. 这对双胞胎常常同时开口说话，同时完成对方的句子。再看一个例句 The two cars backed out of their parking spots simultaneously, causing a minor accident. 这两辆车同时从停车位往后退，造成一场小事故。最后我们来看 woe 这个名词，它的意思是困难或是不幸。譬如The woe of losing his job and thus not being able to pay his bills left Tom feeling hopeless. 失去了工作，因而无法支付账单的不幸让 Tom 感到绝望。或者是 The novel's main character suffered great woe and hardship before finding happiness at the end of the book. 这本小说里的主角在结尾找到幸福之前，遭遇了很大的不幸和苦难。再举一个例句 The basketball team's woes continued when they lost to a team they normally beat. 这支篮球队输给了一支他们平常会打败的球队之后，持续陷在困境中。
Are you ready to finish out our lesson, friends? Let's read on. Taiwan's government has invested significant amounts of time and money in cleaning up groundwater, but it's not an easy fight. When you see the phrase significant amounts, you can just think of a lot. There has been a lot of time and effort put into solving this problem.
That's right, into cleaning up the groundwater. But it's not an easy fight. That reminds me of that phrase we talked about a little while ago, to have a fighting chance. That there is a chance to improve, but we're going to have to work really hard to make that happen.
All right, we read here, in this threefold crisis of scarcity, overuse, and pollution, the government must simultaneously address both the quantity and quality of available groundwater. Well, we see that it's a threefold crisis, and what that means is that there are three distinct problems. You see them listed right here in the article: scarcity, overuse, and pollution.
That's right. Sometimes we use that word fold to talk about not only problems, but it could be reasons or basically anything that has multiple factors to it. You could use however many factors and then add the word fold. So in this threefold crisis, and here are those words again, it's scarcity, that is the idea that something is rare, there's not a lot of it. Overuse, we're using it too much. Kind of reminds me of that word we talked about earlier, excessive, right? And pollution, the idea that things are really dirty.
That's right. All right, so we have a threefold crisis. Part of their strategy is to build more monitoring wells, which help keep tabs on the health of groundwater. Now, if you're going to monitor something, it means you are going to check it consistently. You are going to check it many times to make sure that nothing bad is going on or that there's no change. For example, I know when my kids get sick, I make sure to monitor their temperature to see if they're going to be running a fever or not. It means I check it periodically, every so often, to make sure that there's no changes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And wells here, I usually think of a hole that's dug in the ground so that we can get water from somewhere with a well. Well, here, a monitoring well, it may have to do, obviously it has to do with water, but it's not necessarily that kind of well that we can drink water from. But these monitoring wells, they measure the levels and the quantity and the quality of subsurface water. And this helps keep tabs on the health of the groundwater receipt. Well, if you keep tabs on something, that's another phrase for monitoring something. Or it could also mean that you are just in touch with somebody. For example, I like to keep tabs on our former coworkers here at Studio Classroom.
That's a great example. Well, our last sentence in our article says, hopefully the government's efforts will bring Taiwan's groundwater woes to a close and help the island manage this resource. There's a great sentence pattern there right in the last sentence, to bring something to a close. That means that it's an ending. There is an end in sight, and that is going to solve the problem or mean that that chapter is done.
And that basically brings our lesson to a close, right, Anne-Marie?
Yeah.
But we do have one more thing we'd like to discuss, and that is today's Talk About It question. Rebecca, what are some ways that you can save water during a drought?
Well, I think the first thing is I could take shorter showers because I like taking long showers, but that's not very good because it uses up too much water. Another thing we can do is when we flush the toilet, in most of the newer toilets, there's two settings, like one for just the liquid stuff and then one for poo. And then you can just use the two different settings so that you don't flush so much water down the toilet. Other things we could do is just don't go to the car wash, because car washes use up a lot of water that is precious during times of drought. So these are three things I think. Another thing is check for leaks in your house, like whether it's sinks or faucets, or especially the shower. Perhaps your shower is leaking. Make sure there's no leaks.
Rebecca, you mentioned you taking shorter showers. Do you think that would take a long time getting used to, or do you think that you could just kind of get into the habit right away?
I hate the idea. I love taking long showers, but if water really was in a shortage situation, I think that's what we all should do. Like take a shower, finish it in 3 minutes. It's doable. I know people in the military, that's what they do, 3-minute showers.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Friends, it's time for a quiz. Are you ready? Shut your magazines. Are you ready, Gabe?
I am, Anne-Marie.
All right, here we go. What is the threefold crisis that we just talked about?
Yeah, do I have options or?
Well, when it comes to groundwater.
When it comes to groundwater?
Yes.
Okay, yes, there's a threefold crisis. We talked about how rare something is, and clean groundwater can be kind of hard to find. And so that's referring to scarcity.
That's right. That's one of them.
That was one of them, right?
Yes.
We also talked about how people can do something in excess or excessively at one time, and then they don't use it afterwards. So overuse is another one.
Scarcity, overuse,
And finally, pollution.
You got it. Scarcity, overuse, and pollution. We hope you got that right as well, friends. That is the end of our lesson about liquid gold. We have a brand new lesson for you next time, right here on Studio Classroom.
A good friend lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.